I feel like it's been a little while since we've done anything intensive to the Civic. The last thing we really did was put the motor in, but now it's time to start getting it to the point where she can run. What is going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. So today, we are finally starting to work on the Civic a little bit more. And one of the first things I did need to get before we can actually get anything started was this. And this is a new fuel rail. And I already have one injector in there, and I already kind of put this thing in there because I just want to make sure everything was fitting right and everything was proper how it was supposed to be. So we didn't really assemble any of this, so we still have a lot more to go with it. And I still have to install the entire air manifold thing in the car. Intake manifold. So we're gonna get to do all that today, and it's gonna be exciting and it's hot, and I'm already starting to sweat. So the reason we are actually changing out fuel rails is because the air manifold I was using originally was for the B20, and the problem with that is it goes in an SUV. So it sits up really high, it sits above the block, so there was no way of me being able to close the actual hood of the car with that manifold on there. So we're switching to an LS manifold because they sit a lot lower, and for some reason the fuel rails aren't compatible with each other, and I'll show you guys the comparison in just a sec. So on the original fuel rail, you'll notice that there's a couple holes, but this big one I actually drilled out myself to make it fit, but then it got kind of sketchy because, well, I didn't want to like actually poke a hole in it. So instead of just using this one and making this one work, I just bought a brand new one, and this one looks a lot better. You can see it has the mounting hole right here already, so it will fit on our manifold. So the only thing we have to do really is transfer over our injectors, put on the other accessories on there, and just plumb it up, which shouldn't be too difficult. I can use the original plumbing that's actually on this fuel rail because it should all be compatible, but we're just gonna put over the injectors and we can start throwing it in the car. So with these injectors being probably 20-something years old, I am going to change them out eventually because these grommets on there that are supposed to make everything like watertight for the fuel to actually go through, they seem a little bit weak and they didn't really want to hold that well. So we're going to get new injectors eventually, but hopefully this works. I might get new O-rings for it because I think one of the grommets actually did break, so it's probably not like watertight, but hopefully it gets us to where we need to be here in a few weeks. And the nice thing about this kit that I got, it came with a new fuel pressure regulator, which looks really cool, honestly. And it came with new hardware for everything. It just didn't come with hoses, but that should be fine. We just take the hoses off the old one and put them on the new one. So we're just gonna start connecting all the things and assembling our fuel rail now. Never understood why aftermarket parts come with like Allen keys or Allen bolts and they don't even come with the tools. Something I've learned about eBay parts is good fitment isn't always guaranteed, and to get this on is definitely taking a little bit more of a struggle than I thought. The O-ring didn't want to stay in, this didn't want to line up properly. We finally got it to line up good, so now it's actually going in, but at first, definitely a struggle. And the thing is, with something like a fuel rail, you know, you really have to make sure it's super tight or else you'll be leaking gas, and that's not good. So I'm just gonna keep trying to get this tight. You can see there's kind of like a hairline gap in there still, so I'm gonna try to just clamp it down a little bit more, but we're gonna get this tight. Here's where my confusion is setting in with this piece. So in the original one, you can see that your main fuel line is right here. So that's where your fuel goes in. And then you have your regulator right here. But over on this one, your regulator's right here. And I don't know where my fuel line goes. These sides are both open and this doesn't fit anywhere. So I'm looking at my old one from the D16 and trying to figure this out. After about 30 minutes of fiddling with this and watching other videos and tutorials, the setup is gonna look something like this. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm not confident that this thing is going to be sealed and hold everything. This entire setup for the actual fuel system is very janky. This doesn't seem to fit very well. We're gonna try it out. I have everything tightened down as much as I possibly can so we can, you know, hopefully see if it does work, but I'm not very confident once we get the car started. Something cool I did notice that came with the kit though, it did come with new O-rings for our injectors, so I'm gonna swap out all these new O-rings on it so we can actually use these. Only takes about 2 seconds of work for the new O-rings to actually go on, so I am pretty hyped that it's that easy. Pretty much what you're gonna want to do to swap these out is take this little, I guess, filter out of it, and then these kind of will either just rip off because they are very old and they do smell like old gas. It's a little bit of fiddling with it, but this one's already starting to rip a little bit, so I'm gonna use the rip and try to just break it off here. And it comes off, get your new one, slide it back on, put your filter back in. There you go, you have a newly O-ringed injector. You know, I always feel like I'm working on cars in the extreme heat or the extreme cold, and I don't have an in-between, so this sucks. Buy a garage, kids. Something that I have learned throughout the years of working on cars is always keep old parts and always keep spare bolts. So you're always going to have, well, not always, if you're doing things 100% correct at the time, you're not gonna not have spare bolts. But if you ever have spare bolts, always keep them. And if you ever have spare parts, keep them. So for example, I had my old D16 air intake manifold. So I needed a bolt because apparently somewhere along the lines with this one, I lost the bolt for the fuel rail. And most of these Honda parts are all the same part. So I just took one of the bolts off, put on this, so now we're getting all secure and good to go. Now for the most exciting part and seeing if we can actually get it in here, because the way these bolts and studs are set up, it's kind of in an awkward spot, but I'm pretty confident we can get it in there. It's all about just tightening it up at this point. For anybody planning to swap intake manifolds, I definitely suggest doing it before you put the motor in the car, because I think there's 8 bolts on here and you can only kind of get to the top 4, and the bottom 4 you're going to have to go under the car to get to, so it's kind of a struggle to get these on. After again struggling, we got it all in here, and I'll do a little bit of a video for you, but it's kind of interesting seeing how this actually goes in, because the fuel pressure regulator, or the gauge, the fuel pressure gauge, doesn't even face anywhere towards like me. It faces towards the back of the car, so it's not even like useful the way this actually sits in here. So it's kind of an interesting design. I'm really hoping that this does hold fuel pressure, because I am a little bit skeptical and nervous about it because the fittings seemed a little bit weird. But if it doesn't, I'll spend the money, I'll get like a really nice one. So hopefully this does work. It was only like $45, so if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world, but I hope it does. It definitely looks nicer and definitely looks better, and I hope it operates just as good as stock or better. But again, I am kind of skeptical about it because some things seemed a little bit weird. My one injector all the way to the left, I can kind of wiggle a little bit, which I don't think is a good thing. So some things don't seem seated correctly, so hopefully this works out. If it doesn't, again, I'm just gonna replace it. But because we have this in now, we're getting closer to being able to plumb things now, and that gives us 5 more of the plugs that are actually being used. So now it's less of a mystery of where things go. It is definitely cool though that we're finally doing our first swap and plugging things in here and kind of seeing where things are actually supposed to be going now, opposed to just having a big just jumble of mess. I am finding some interesting things that are kind of worrying me. Like I found this broken plug, and I'm really hoping that that was from the D16 and not from something with this new motor, because I did start plugging things in as I did, and I don't think it is from the new motor, but it's kind of a scary thought seeing that. But we are starting to actually take shape, and we actually have some parts in here. I do have the throttle body in there that I will throw in, and I already know where they plug in at, so it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna leave you guys off here. Hope you guys are getting excited, because we are getting closer to this build. We have a bunch of new parts coming. I have a lot of parts in my living room right now for my BRZ actually. Hopefully the next video is a BRZ install. That's gonna be the coolest one yet. So I am gonna leave you guys off here. So if you guys could please me a few things, comment, like, subscribe, keep doing that fun stuff, keep doing you, stay motivated. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out and peace.